Hello, this is Wes. In this video, we're going to take a look at how we can create this iron-on transfer distress logo look here directly in Substance Painter. All right, so let's start this off from scratch. So I'm going to jump over here to my layer stack where I have my shirt here, and let's just get rid of the logo completely. And like I said, we're going to start from scratch. So the first thing I'm going to do is drag in my logo. So I have this logo, it's a PNG file, and we're just going to bring this right into Substance Painter. I can do that by just doing a drag and drop, and then we'll place it right here on the shirt. Now in the pop-up, I'm going to set this as my base color channel. And so what that's going to do is you'll see here at the top that it adds a fill layer. And if I take a look at my properties for this fill, it's going to add my color channel, and then it places the logo here. That's great. All right, so now we'll just grab my scale tool, and I'm just going to scale down. You can see that it defaults, if we look at the projection mode, when I drag in an image like I've done here and applied it to the 3D object, it comes in with the projection set to warp projection, which is perfect. That's what I want for here. Now, another thing I like to do is I'll jump over here to my surface tool, and I'll use this to kind of, snap this to the surface. You can see that it does an okay job. We do have a little bit of an issue with the projection, but we're going to set that in a second, or what I mean by the projection depth. So here I'll hit the R on the keyboard to go to my scale, and let's just scale, rotate, position this guy here. So we'll do something like that, and we're going to scale this up. And yeah, just reposition it so it's on the shirt like I want. And so I want something like this. Now you can see here that the edges are being cut off. There's a couple ways to deal with this. Because I'm using projection warp, I could jump over here to my edit vertices. I could select these vertices, go back to my move tool by hitting W, and then just adjust like this. And so what this is doing is it's giving me, I'm kind of warping the projection here. And that's great because it's, warping it around the curvature of this shirt. So that's one option I could do. In this case, though, I don't think I really need to go that in depth. I can just right click here and then just play around with my projection depth. So if I just drag this slider a little bit, you can see that that's enough. It's going to take care of what I want to do there. These little green arrows that you see, and if I go back and play around with that projection depth, they will increase and decrease, kind of giving me a visual cue of what that depth is going to look like. So we'll do something like that. So in my case for this project, you can see that I'm working with UV tiles, and I've gone ahead and set up a few folders. So I have this shirt folder, which is here. This is what I'm going to be working with. And so I can just take this layer and I'm just going to drag it into the shirt and place it underneath this stains that I have. So I have a layer here that's just adding a little bit of kind of variation, just some stains, and I want that to be underneath that. Now for my masking, you'll notice that I'm using this feature here called Geometry Mask. And if I jump into Geometry Mask, you can see that you can mask by type. You can mask either by UV tiles or by mesh names. And so all the mesh parts that I have are showing up here. In my case, I'm just going to mask based on UV tiles. And so I have 3 of these UV tiles, which represents the shirt. And so I have the 3 UV tiles that represent the shirt, and that's what's masking based on my folder here. All right, so that's how that's set up. Let's jump back over here and let's get right into it. So let's start by adding the cracks. And so what I'm going to do is come over here to my layer stack. And so I have the logo, and I'm going to start by creating a mask. And we're going to choose a white mask. And so this is like a holdout mask. So it's a mask, but because it's white, we can still see the full logo, which is great. That's what I want to do. So here within this mask, I'm going to jump over and add a fill. Now for the fill, let's go into we have our fill here. Let's go into the grayscale and let's start to look for some textures. There's one that I want to use. It's called Marble, and I believe it's this one here, Marble Fine. This is the one I want to use. So I'll click, and now I have Marble Fine. Okay, so now we need to make some adjustments, right, to this fill layer. So what I'm going to do is come over here to invert. We'll click invert, and there we go. And now it's just a matter of playing around with the contrast and the balance. So we can play around with these. Now, before I go too much into that adjustments, let's jump back over here to the fill settings, and let's set the tiling. So let me try repeating this by around 2, and I think that looks pretty good. All right, so like I said, now we can go back and we can play around with this balance. And this is going to let us kind of dial this effect up and down later on. But here, we'll use something like this. So now we have kind of this crack pattern for the shirt, which is great. Now, the next thing, I could stop here, but what I want to do is I want to add a little bit of this kind of bubbling effect, like it's peeling back. And so to do that, we're going to rely on some height information. Actually, you know what? Before we do that, let's work with our channels again. One other thing I want to do Like right now, we just have our color, which is our layer, but I also want to add some roughness to this. So what I'm thinking of is this is like one of those, like, your old 70s t-shirts where you had this the iron-on transfer, that, that would stay on for like a day or two and then would crackle and peel off like this. This is what we're kind of replicating. So I'm going to hit my roughness map here, and now you can see if I just play around with this, I'm getting kind of that little, shininess of that little logo here. Another thing that I could probably do with this, looking at it, is below this layer, here in my layer stack, I have this Pills mesh structure cotton fabric. I'm getting this from Substance 3D Assets, which you can always just download. If we go to the little Substance here, you can download. So again, this is just this. If I try to do a search for it, let's see if it shows up. Pills mesh, I don't know. It's on free assets. Let me click that off. Let's see if it shows up. Sometimes, I think this is the one that I used, but sometimes the search doesn't work all that great. Okay, so that had some normal information with it, I believe. Let's select it and take a look. What do we have here? We had some, the height. There is height. I turned it off, and I'm just using some normal information. So what's happening is the normal information from this layer is passing its way up through to my logo. And the reason that is happening is because if we select the layer, I'm going to use this little channel selector here. And if I go to normal, you'll see that this is on like this normal combined blending mode. Now, if I want to stop that, I could set this to normal. Okay, so here's normal. Now you'll see nothing's happening because on this layer, I now need to enable my normal channel. And when I do that, we now do not see any of that normal information below it. And this is really giving me that effect. Now, another thing that I kind of like about this, which is a little bit of a happy accident, if I kind of move over here and I move my mouse around, you can see here, let's take a look at the roughness channel. So look at what's happening here with the roughness channel. So this is being masked, right? And I'm using Marble Fine as the mask. And I'm not masking based on the logo itself. So what you end up getting is this full square like this, instead of it masking around the actual logo part of it or the transparency of the logo you see here. Now, normally I'd want to try to mask that, but again, kind of going for this like iron-on transfer look, this is perfect. This is kind of a free effect because I kind of like that you see, this is like if I peeled off the iron transfer, I laid it on the shirt, then I ironed it on, we're getting kind of this here as well. So I kind of like that actually. We're going to leave it. So now I get this, what looks like this little plasticky look. And of course I could always go back to my roughness information and just keep playing with this. You can get something like that. I don't want to go too intense, so we'll leave it here. Okay, perfect. So now we have the logo, we have the cracks, we got a little bit of roughness, but we want to add that height and that peeling. So what I'll do next is right above the Monster logo, I'm going to click and create a fill, and let's call this, I'll just call it Monster Height logo, okay? And so now we'll right click here, and I'm just going to hold down your I think it's the Alt or Option key, and then click height, and that just disables every other channel and enables only the height information. And then I'm just going to give this a little bit of a positive value. Now, nothing's happening. We don't have any height data, but we're going to work on that just in a second. Okay, so that's what this layer, we're kind of breaking this off. Now, to get the height information, I want to be able to pull data from the layers below it. And a really great way to do that is to use one of my favorite features in Substance Painter, and that is the anchor point. So there's a couple things that we want to do. First things first, we want to be able to call up this crack mask. So what I did was I held down Alt or Option and clicked on the mask so we could see just the pure mask. And I want to be able to get this data later on in the stack. So now that we have our marble, what we're going to do is right-click here, and I'm going to add an anchor point. You could also, if we delete this guy here, you could also come over here to this little wand button and choose anchor point from here. And I want the anchor point to be on top of the Marble Fine. Just like the layer stack, things are processing from the bottom up. Same thing here when you're in this, what we call an effect stack for your mask. It's processing from the bottom up. So we have marble, we get the marble information, and then we have this anchor. Think of an anchor like a pin. We're just pinning this information. And then later in the layers above the pin, we're able to access this information. And this information is going to be everything below the mask, or everything below the pin or the anchor, we'll say, in this little mask, which is going to be this data. All right, so we have that, and it's called Monster Logo Mask. Now, another thing that I'm going to want to do is when I start to work on this peeling, I don't want to have the same issue that we were having with Marble Fine. As you recall, it looked like, here, we'll do this. Let's go into here. Oh, sorry. Let me go back to my material mode and we'll jump into roughness so you can see it. So if we go to roughness, I don't want this to happen where we have, this little square and the height would be popping out in the square. I want to just grab height information that is only around the actual logo itself. So a way to do that and reuse the data is to use anchor points again. So this time we have an anchor point on the mask, but we also are going to create an anchor point. So I'm selecting the material and again, go up to my little wand tool, anchor point. We're now anchor pointing the layer channels itself. And so in our case, it's color, roughness, and normal. It's giving me all that data. But this data is also going to have transparency with it because of this base color. And that's what I really care about. Okay, so now I have the data. How can we use that? First things first, we're going to come over here to the Monster Height logo. This is where we have that height. And remember, we gave it a little bit of positive value for now. And we're going to mask this. This time, we're going to choose a black mask. Now, within this mask, we are going to create a fill. And for this fill, the first thing I want to do, and it's kind of weird, you know, I'm glad I'm explaining it this way because this tripped me up for a while. We're going to work a little backwards, okay? So bear with me for a second. First things first, we don't want to get the cracks and start with the height. We want to set a mask for this height effect. So to do that, we have our fill selected. We're going to right click. We're going to come over here to the data, the grayscale. We'll click it. Now, we're not going to be looking for a map. We're going to be looking for our mask or anchor points. And remember, I have the 2 anchor points. Now, what I want to do is I want to grab the transparency of this color logo. So that's why I put an anchor point on the color of the material or the material itself. Okay, so we're going to use that one first. And here's where anchors are really cool. So it's a point of all the data of everything where the point is set. And you can reference specific channels. In my case, I want to reference the base color channel. So that's where I'm getting the transparency from. And it looks a little weird already. So we can really see what we're doing. What I like to do at this point is I'm just going to, again, alter option, the mask, so I can see it. And so now we've taken the color information from that base color and we brought it into the mask. And of course, it just kind of converts it to grayscale. But that's not what we want. What we want to do here is every time you have a fill, there's also this little levels effect. And what I'm going to do is just take the input white and just crank it all the way back, and I'm going to essentially create a mask. Now, it's not perfect here. You can see that there's a little bit of black here and some stuff here, but you know what? It's going to be good enough. It's fine in this case. So we're doing that. So now if we go back, we now just have height information that is basically set around the logo itself, okay? So that's great. Now, the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to come over here and we are going to add another fill. So here, I'll add another fill. I'm going to right-click here and go into the grayscale input, my anchor points, and this time I do want to grab the cracks, and that is going to be pinned or anchored from that monster logo mask. So we're going to use that. So now these guys are coming back. However, you can see where the problem is. You're already starting to see this height information. It's like everywhere, right? And then we definitely don't want that. So that's why I use this fill first, okay? That gives me this. Okay, we put the cracks on top of it and it looks like this. So right now, the cracks, they're just overriding everything. So the trick here is use the blending mode. So now I'm gonna set this blending mode to subtract, okay? And now we get this. We get the cracks, but only the cracks are now gonna be set or placed inside of the white values below it with that subtract, so we get this, okay? And that's exactly what I wanna work with. Now, if we look at it, here's what we're getting. Let's jump over to the height information for this guy, and if we play with it, you can see that we can now push in and out here like this, okay? And so you'll see in a minute here what we end up doing and why I went positive, because right now it looks backwards, right? You would think, wait a minute, we want to push these cracks inwards. But what I want to do is I don't want this just to be, you could stop here, right? And maybe it works, but like I don't want to just have this push like straight down or straight up into the surface. I want to have a little bit of a peeling effect. So right now you can see that this is just like a pretty hard edge right here, and we don't get any nice kind of fall off where it looks like the crack is peeling. And so here's how I create these peeling effects. Let's go back here to that mask so we can see it. And there's a couple options. What I want to do is I want to create, so right now if we look at our mask, you get this like white, but I want to create an edge matte to this. So there's, like I said, there's different ways to work with this. One of the things that I tried to do, let's try this. Let's go into filter, and we're going to do a search, and you'll see that we have this option called mask outline. And what it does is it takes the white and dark value, and you can, you know, kind of play with this, right, with this threshold. And basically the idea is I'm trying to build this kind of effect here like this. So you can see I could even blur this a little bit and get something like this here. And so what this is now doing is it's giving me, you know, what it's basically going to create for me this nice fall off. And then I have this curve shape here. So if I adjust this back to like say -1, this is the exact look I'm trying to go for. So if we do this, you can see that now I'm starting to get a little bit of this curving effect here. And again, we got to play with it a little bit. But I found that this one didn't work so great for me. I could also come over here and this maybe, yeah, I got to increase this to the positive. Get something like that. But I didn't really, I don't know. For some reason, sometimes this technique works pretty well. But in this case, it didn't work so great for me. I didn't like how it was turning out. But it's an option. Sometimes it works good. So let's take a look at another way. So the other way I did it, this is kind of an older school way that I work, is I'll come into here. And I am going to create now a filter. I'm basically going to build this mask up myself. And we're going to come into here, and we're going to grab a blur. And we're just going to blur this, okay? So we're going to get like a blur here. Okay, so now we're blurring. And then what we want to do is we basically want to grab that mask, that crack again, and kind of like place it back inside of itself. So I know that this here, and you can actually rename these, which is pretty good. So we could call this is the base color mask. And then this here, we can double click and say, well, this is the cracks mask. So now we kind of know what we're working with, right? And then if I hold down Alt or Option and left click and drag, I can just duplicate this and drag it above, okay? And now from here, instead of being subtract, I could turn this to multiply. And now I'm getting this effect, which is basically the same. It's just a little bit cleaner in this case. So now I can kind of bevel out like this. But you can see it's kind of creating the same thing. But you'll see I just felt this worked a little bit better in my case. All right, so let's go back, and there you go. You can see it just gave me a better result. And like I said, sometimes, you know, it just depends both ways. I kind of like to know how that works. You know, options is always the best, right? You know, just having different techniques for different things. So now as I move my light around, you can see that, okay, yeah, now I've got this crack effect. This is working great. And I can right-click now. Let's go to the height. I can right-click on the height, and I can adjust this. I can make it, you know, more intense or less intense. But now you see why I'm going to this positive value here. And I'm doing that because the mask itself, the positive part, which is the white, we do want that to kind of bubble out. So right here in the dark area, it's going to push in, which is the crack. And then we've got this like white slope area like this, which is going to, you know, the white, it's going to pop up and then just nice and slope down like that here. So that's how we kind of create that effect. And there's where we get that kind of nice peeling look. Now, what's also cool about this is because we've driven this all by anchors, we can now close this layer up and we can come over here to the actual mask itself, which is Marble Fine. And if I want to adjust the crack, I can do that now by just adjusting the balance, and I can dial this effect up and down. So like, let's say that, you know, oh, this is super intense. That doesn't look very good. No problem. We can dial it down. Or if, you know, you want to have a clean version and later you just kind of want to grunge it up a little bit, you can do that. You could even jump over here and maybe increase the tiling, see what that does. Oh, I don't know. Maybe that's even better, right? Maybe I need 3. But again, we can kind of play with this and get a little bit more fidelity in here. So maybe I'll do that, jump back over to my height, everything's super tweakable, and just increase the height value a little bit. And there we go. There's the effect. Okay, so that's the end of this tutorial. Hope you found it helpful. Thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you next time.